Hello, everybody. Today I wanted to get started on this biofuel presentation and talk about the biofuel ethanol, the American fuel as it may be. So, to get started with, the major source of ethanol is energy crops, which include crops such as corn, maize, sugarcane, and grains. The main reason for this is that ethanol is a production that comes from the breaking down of the cellulose in these starch-based crops, and then using acids and other enzymes to break down the cellulose into its components, lignin and hemicellulose. They are then hydrolyzed, if that is the proper term, into sugars by taking the water and breaking them down, uh, and then that sugar is then fermented with uh, fermented producing carbon dioxide and ethanol. And ethanol is the source of is this biofuel that we are talking about. It is the byproduct that comes from these specific types of reactions, the fermentation reactions. And then we take the ethanol from this biomass mixture of plant and all these different plants, mostly corn, in America at least, and maize, and we separate it. So within America, a a large percentage of what we use in our everyday gas is, or not a large, but at least a tenth of it is ethanol. Ethanol is usually mixed into our gasoline in order to reduce the amount of carbon that's produced, or in the carbon emissions. But a larger reason for this is that gasoline is a finite resource, while ethanol is produced from biomass, from these corn. Over 30% of America is, or under 30%, a little under 30%, is largely dedicated to cornfields and the production of corn. So we have a large amount of area dedicated to the production of the main resource for ethanol production. So we use it in spades, and we make a lot of ethanol in order to mix it into our gasoline to at least reduce the carbon emissions. And it's a pretty reasonable way to reduce our carbon emissions, as they during the production of the biomass for ethanol, we use a lot of carbon, uh, growing the plants using photosynthesis and going through the photosynthesis cycle, growing the plants into the corn, and then we use that corn, break it down, go through the process of making the ethanol and fermenting it. And during that process, oftentimes what we will use the carbon from the production of ethanol in other sources, like growing other plants. Recent studies have been using microbacteria and growing the microbacteria and algae within locations that have excess carbon due to the production of ethanol. And finally, the last reason why ethanol is such a good biofuel, is that it burns, and when burned, it produces less carbon. So ultimately, it is a very, very good bioresource for reducing carbon emissions. So ultimately, the final plan for uh, the production of ethanol and the future of ethanol should be to modify common everyday engines within cars in order to allow them to burn ethanol more efficiently, and increase the percentage of ethanol within gasoline so that we can get this finite resource out and bring in a more renewable resource, as well as reduce carbon emissions. And finally, we should look more into the use of carbon production in plant growth, other plant growth, not related to the biomass, or find a way to genetically modify plants in order to absorb more carbon. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful rest of the day.